Hey everyone, it's the Doom Dog. Do you remember the launch of the PlayStation Portable? The hype for this thing before launch was through the roof. And why wouldn't it be? Sony had dominated the console market for years prior to this with the massively successful PlayStation and PlayStation 2 consoles. We were all pumped to see what a Sony handheld would bring to the table. It was also the first real challenger for Nintendo's handheld gaming crown since Sega released the Game Gear in the early 90s. One of the huge keys to Sony's success was a plethora of role-playing games. If they were going to make the PSP a success, they needed to bring RPGs to it as well. There is no way the PSP was going to launch without a role-playing game, but how do you ensure that there is one at the system's launch? You develop it in-house, of course. Sony put Sony Online Entertainment on this task, and it certainly seemed like a win-win scenario. SOE had previously developed the much-loved Champions of Norrath on the PlayStation 2, so they knew what they were doing. Well, the system did launch with that promised role-playing game. That game was Untold Legends, Brotherhood of the Blade, a hack-and-slash dungeon crawler in the style of greats like Baldur's Gate, Dark Alliance, and of course, Diablo. A lot was riding on this game because it both cleared the RPG flag at the launch of Sony's new handheld system and established a brand new franchise. Take a trip back in time with me as we take a look at Untold Legends Brotherhood of the Blade, the first big RPG for the PlayStation Portable, and see how it holds up all these years later. Before we start, I should say this. Some models of the PSP do have video output through either composite cables or component cables. I have the PSP 3000, which does have this feature. I have a pair of component cables for mine. When it does output, though, it displays like this. In order to display full screen, I have to crop the video. I do my best, but if the video is slightly off at times, that is why. As soon as you boot up the game, you are greeted with the opening text crawl that serves as the game's prologue. It gives you the basic backstory and it is not a good first impression by any stretch of the imagination. The text just scrolls over a static image. There's no voiceover, there are no cutscenes, but what really drives home how bad it is the music. To put it simply, this music is awful. It makes the text crawl feel a lot longer than it actually is. Anyway, the basic setup for the story established here is this. The game takes place in a city called Avon and surrounding areas. It's a time of celebration as it is the Festival of the Crown, marking 2,000 years since Avon was founded. A crowd gathers as Overseer Lysetta, the overseer of the Foundation Academy, crowns a young woman named Kaylee to mark the occasion. Kaylee is a beautiful young woman that is well loved by the people. After the Festival of the Crown, the Tournament of the Guardian is held to pick out a new guardian for the city of Avon. The player character is the winner of the tournament. He or she spends the night after the tournament celebrating his or her victory with the locals by partying and drinking. He or she spends the night at the Howling Pine Inn, and the game proper begins the next morning when the character wakes up. The main menu lets you start a new character, continue a previous game, change various options, or replay the opening text crawl. You probably won't be choosing that one. Upon starting a new character, you are given 4 options to choose from: the Alchemist, the Druid, the Knight, and the Berserker. The Alchemist is female. She's physically a weaker class, but has a strong focus on poison attacks. The Druid has various earth magics. He can summon creatures to fight by his side. The Knight is a typical warrior class. He can focus on either melee weapons or bows with magic skills to enhance either. The Berserker is a female warrior class with a focus on speed and savagery in her attacks. For my playthrough, I chose the Knight. The class you choose can affect how difficult the game can be. It goes without saying, but this is a long and in-depth review. That means I will be covering the story in quite a bit of detail. This will be cram-packed with spoilers for every single bit of storytelling that happens in this game. Consider this your spoiler warning. Anyway, you wake up the next day to find that spiders are attacking the inn. They're called Praetox spiders. You come to find out that the catacombs are crawling with them, but that they have always been peaceful in the past. In fact, you are informed that the spiders have never attacked the city like this before. William, the inn's bartender, tells you that he saw a large shadowy figure approaching the entrance of the inn. You investigate, you discover that it is a shadow Praetox, a new type that has never been seen before. After defeating him, you leave the inn. Upon exiting the inn, you are greeted by Acolyte Maya, who informs you that the Praetox spiders are headed for the Foundation Academy. She asks you to stop them before they reach Overseer Lysetta. When you find the Overseer at the Academy and speak to her, she tells you that the newly crowned young woman Kaylee has been kidnapped by the spiders, and she tasks you with the goal of saving her. She tells you that they took her to the secret catacombs and hands you an orb to light your way. When you enter the catacombs, you find Kaylee in the clutches of a creature called the Revenant, who says, "The girl belongs to us now." You dispatch him and speak to Kaylee, who mentions that she was bitten by one of the spiders. She says the creature seemed to be talking to its shadow, and the shadow seems to be talking back to it. She returns to the town, and you follow her, only to discover that Overseer Lysetta was bitten as well, while you were rescuing Kaylee. Overseer Lysetta mentions another wave of spiders attacked while you were rescuing Kaylee. She claims the bite could be a fate worse than death, and she wants some venom to attempt to create an antidote. She asks you to go to the western catacombs to retrieve the venom. While you were in search of the western catacombs, you come across this creature called the Mournful Sage, who claims you neglected your task. What could he mean by this? Lysetta claims the bite is getting worse, and she starts referring to herself in the third person and correcting herself afterwards. It's very strange. She takes the book that you found in the catacombs to study, and she uses the venom you gathered to create a serum that temporarily staves off the effects of the bite. She wants venom from the queen spider, so she sends you back to where the attack started in the end to find the queen. When you go back to the inn, the bartender tells you that the spiders entered by breaking through a wall in the back of the place, and that one of the inn's patrons, a man named Ronan, has been kidnapped. You climb through the hole in the wall and start searching for the queen. Before you can reach her, you find Ronan, and he's been transformed into a zombie. Despite the Praetox Queen's protest that you will never win, you dispatch of her and take her venom. Lysetta uses the venom to help her and Kaylee out with the bites further, and she sends you to talk to Elder Adis, the leader of the Druids of Avon. Before you leave, Kaylee asks you about recent dreams you've had, and mentions odd ones that she has had. She wonders if she has had similar ones to yours. The Elder tells you that centuries ago, the Druids built a bunch of shrines in the woods surrounding Avon. He claims that they are being corrupted, as he can feel their power weakening recently. He fears the Gorgine shaman are draining the shrines of their power, and he does not know why. The Gorgine are cannibalistic pigmen. He sends you out into the woods and tasks you to stop them. He fears there may be something more nefarious going on with an unseen enemy, and he sees similarities between this and events of the distant past. Acolyte Maya has spent years investigating the effects of druid magic on the human body and their physical state of well-being. She believes that druids sacrificing themselves should not be necessary. Druids sacrifice themselves to keep the world in a state of natural purity. 3 days prior, she sent a follower of hers into the druid burial site to gather materials for her research, and the follower has not returned. She asks you to find the follower in the Nightfall tomb and rescue him if necessary. When you find the assistant, he believes may have accidentally triggered a ward and woke up the souls of the dead in the tomb. Though he managed to get away unharmed, Maya is grateful for her assistant's return safe and sound. Sabin Firehand says a number of berserkers have abandoned the Sisterhood and wandered off into the woods. They were led by a woman named Calypso, who stole an ancient artifact before she left. She wants you to find Calypso, confront her, and get the artifact back. Calypso and her followers are hiding out in the dismal lair in the Shadow Pine. She seems upset that Diana sent you instead of chasing after her herself. When you return the artifact, Sabin is impressed with your work and she rewards you. Kaylee says that though the Overseer has made more serum, the two of them are not quite well yet. The wildlings broke into the city and stole the crystal to use to create the serum. She needs it back. She claims the old woman that stole it slipped away into the Shadow Pine outside the city, and she wants you to recover the crystal. When you find the old woman, she assumes that you are there to kill her, but she has a request for you instead. The Gorgine have kidnapped her daughter. They demand something from the Foundation Academy for her safe return. She promises the safe return of the crystal if she gets her daughter back. She also mentions that Avon has lost its way and forgot its connections to the wildlings. When you find the granddaughter, she thanks you for saving her. The old woman is true to her word. She gives you the crystal and decides that maybe the people of Avon are not so bad. She asks you to tell the people of Avon that the wildlings are not savages. She mentions once again that Avon has forgotten its purpose, and she believes that for the future of the entire world, Avon must not fall. The fact that the Gorgines wanted the crystal puzzles Kaylee. She finds it disturbing, but she's glad to have the crystal back, as they can now continue work on a cure. She's puzzled by the old woman's words as well. She is unaware of any specific purpose that Avon might have. Perhaps there is something more to this city than meets the eye? Madame Diana believes that an attack from the Gorgine is imminent, and you need to do something to delay it. She wants you to get their tribes to fight each other instead of attacking Avon, so she sends you to kill the champion of the Wallow Pit tribe and the leader of the Snout Trout tribe, and plant evidence that the other did it, causing the two to fight, giving Avon time to prepare for a potential attack. After you accomplish this, you return to Diana, who says that it is strange that the Gorgine have decided to attack, as they have left Avon alone in the past. She seems convinced that the attack will happen anyway, and that this only delays it for the time being. She wants you to go to Templar Draven, who says it is time to end the Gorgine threat once and for all. He sends you to eliminate the matriarch of the Wallowpit tribe. The matriarch is surprised that you survived the Pratox attack. How the hell did she know about that? It seems kind of odd to me. She suggests that humans may be more powerful than she thought, but she claims that her people will rule soon enough. You dispatch of her and return to Avon. When you return to Draven, he feels confident that Avon is now safe from the Gorgine attack, but he fears that this is just the beginning of the city's troubles. He will keep a close eye on the surrounding areas. With that, he sends you back to Overseer Lysetta, who has been studying the book that you recovered. It tells of a man named Aldous who lived 2 centuries ago. He saw Avon go through events similar to this one. Her illness kept her from studying the tome further, so she turned it over to Elder Adis. She wants you to go talk to him. Adis says that a great and long-forgotten evil is coming. He says that the great evil is behind the recent aggression of both the Pratox and the Gorgine species. The tome talks about 4 ancient artifacts that could help Avon with the coming evil, and he sends you off to get the first of them. It's called the Druidic Wreath, and it is in the Sacred Vaults. It is guarded by the Rotting Priest. Upon retrieving the artifact, you discover that it once belonged to a forgotten order called the Brotherhood of the Blade, hence the subtitle of this game. The Brotherhood of the Blade was a sacred bond between 4 warriors who were sworn to protect Avon and its people. The 4 artifacts are the tools of the Brotherhood, and they are the keys to the city's defense against the coming evil. Draven says the city is under threat of attack again. The Vroltok people of the Badlands are amassing for an invasion, and he cannot afford to send his knights to deal with it. Sending you in alone is a much better option than sending in an army, right? How could this ever go wrong? Seriously, how is this the problem that games and other forms of media always run into? We could send in an army to deal with this, but nah, you're the chosen warrior or whatever, so you can go defeat the enemy army all by yourself. Granted, it serves the gameplay just fine, but it makes zero fucking sense from the game's narrative. Anyway, not much is known about the Vroltok tribe, but it turns out that they are anthropomorphic vulture-like creatures with human intelligence and are liking for necromancy and dark magic. Diana says that she scouted out the Badlands and learned more about them, and she says that they are rallying behind a general in the Mororock Gates. After killing the general, Diana says that the Vroltok have never attacked Avon before. Are you noticing a pattern here? The game seems to be repeating itself. This is the third enemy that we have gone after where it turned out that they were peaceful until recently. I get that the game is trying to build up some mystery about what is making these peaceful tribes attack in this way, but it winds up feeling a little lazy and repetitive. Anyway, she says that she lost a few scouts in the past. They have killed a few of her scouts before, but they have never attacked Avon. She finds it odd that this attack is coming so soon after Gorgian aggression. It strikes me as more than a little odd that the Vroltok would murder her scouts, but Avon would never attempt to retaliate for this. How is there never a battle between these factions again? Whatever, she sends you to talk to Draven. Sabin Firehand says the Praetok spiders have a new queen. It would seem that they're gathering their forces behind this to try to attack Avon once again. She wants you to go and kill the queen and stop the attack before it happens. Upon entering the Splinterful Woods, you run into the Wildling woman yet again, and she has been waiting for you here. How did she know that you would come by this specific spot? It would make more sense if she was waiting outside the Avon gates or something. Anyway, she's been watching you, and she says that you are still ignorant of Avon's purpose. She says that the Wildlings are not just thieves and scoundrels. They have a history with the Avon people, and she tells you of a place called the Long Walk beneath the city where an old book called the Wayfarer's Testament lies. The book tells the history of the Wildlings and Avon. She wants you to retrieve it. You find and kill the Spider Queen, and Sabin is grateful. She rewards you, and you travel down the Long Walk where you find the Wayfarer's Testament. You give the book to Maya. The book says that Avon was once ruled by a tyrant king. A group decided to rebel against him and were cast out. They became the Wildlings. The tyrant tortured and executed people. She takes the book to the scholars for further research. Draven claims that the Voltrok are building a stronghold inside Ironstone Hollow, inside Deadeye Ridge. He wants you to stop its construction by killing the general there. I am not sure how this stops the rest of them from building. Is there no chain of command? Does no one take over when the general dies? It seems like there would be, but Draven congratulates you and rewards you for your task when it is done, and he sends you back to Overseer Lysetta. Lysetta has located an item called the Containment Shard in the Whispering Chasm. It is in the hands of a siren called Alyssa the Hateful, and she wants you to kill the siren and retrieve it because the shard will help in the defense of Avon. Sir Aemon tells you that a spirit is wandering in the Splinterful Woods. It is that of a fallen knight called Sir Braylon, and he fears the spirit may attack Avon. Are the city's defenses so fucking weak that they cannot take out one single guy? Anyway, when you find Braylon in the woods, he tells you that he was wrongfully convicted of a crime of murdering his wife and children. He says another dead knight named Sir Gerard is guilty, and he wants you to confront Gerard in his tomb. When you find Sir Gerard, his spirit attacks you, and you have to kill him. When you do, he drops a testament that shows that he was guilty of the crimes that Braylon was charged with, and that Braylon was indeed innocent. Amon takes testimony and thanks you for reversing a half-century-old wrongful conviction. You return to Braylon, and he thanks you and rewards you. After you retrieve the containment shard, you return it to Lysetta, who takes it from you and passes it along to her acolytes to begin working on. She sends you to Draven, who tells you that Kaylee sneaked away from the camp to try to aid soldiers on the battlefield, where she was promptly captured by the Vroltok. He wants you to go to the Screeching Halls and rescue her. Meanwhile, Sir Avon says that the knights are disappearing thanks to a creature called the Weeping Banshee, an ancient siren. He wants you to find her in the Whispering Chasm and kill her. When you complete the task and return to him, he thanks you and rewards you. Upon locating Kaylee in the Screeching Halls, she possesses an important journal that she gives to you. She wants you to return it to Avon ASAP. She says she alone is to blame for her sneaking off. No one told her to do it. She just did it. She says that she was disrespectful to you, and she apologizes. Overseer Lysetta says that you should forgive her. She is young and naive. She also mentions that the Voltok necromancer placed some sort of curse on her and that she is currently resting, and she sends you off to talk to Draven. Draven believes that it's time for you to destroy the Voltok threat once and for all. He says yet again that he does not have the numbers for a head-on assault against them, so you must do it alone. It seems like a better idea to send an army in than you by yourself. This still makes no sense from a narrative standpoint. He wants you to go to the Necrosis Citadel and the heart of their nation and kill their leader. After accomplishing your task, you return to Draven. He says the actions should put the Voltok plans on hold, at least for a while. He sends you to the Overseer. Lysetta takes the book you got from the Voltok leader and says that it may contain the answer that they seek to reverse the curse placed on Kaylee. She also says that the book tells of the coming of a great evil, and the Voltok necromancers managed to harness the powers of that evil. She also located the next tool for the Brotherhood. It's called the Age of Security. It is in the second level of the Temple of Dreams, guarded by a siren. She wants you to retrieve it. When you return the item, the Overseer takes it from you and notes that it is in great shape for its age. She also found the incantation that the necromancer used to curse Kaylee, and she notes the importance of finding the other tools of the Brotherhood. She's located the third one, but it is quite an ordeal to get there. To reach the third one, she says you need to enter the dream space, which is below the Temple of Dreams. You need to use the dream space as a means of reaching the far-off tundra. In the tundra, there is a tower called the Crystal Tower. The Salve of Regeneration is there. It is the third tool, and she wants you to retrieve it. Acolyte Maya tells you that she found a weapon that her father searched for his whole life. It is in the possession of Voltok in the Screeching Halls. She wants you to go there and retrieve it from them. She believes that the weapon would be of great help in defending Avon from the coming evil. After you recover the salve, you return it to the Overseer, and she takes it from you. She is not certain where the last artifact is. She sends you to talk to Diana. Diana sent one of her scouts to the tundra to explore it, and I have to call fucking bullshit on this. The fastest way to get to the tundra is to make a shortcut through the dream space. You are quite literally the first person from Avon to travel there in a long fucking time. How the hell did one of her scouts get there so goddamn fast? This makes no fucking sense. The timeline of these events does not add up at all. What the fuck, game? Anyway, when they were in the tundra, they ran across a beast called the Surigal. This ancient beast is holding them hostage, and he demands an audience with you. He is in the Frostwell Caverns. How the hell does he even know about me if no one from Avon has set foot in the tundra until very recently? News must travel fast in that frozen wasteland. When you find the weapons and return it to Maya, she is dismayed to discover that it is broken. She vows to keep searching for the rest of the weapon until she finds it. She thanks you for bringing the weapon fragment to her, and she rewards you for your efforts. Surigal is waiting for you in the Frostwell Caverns, and you discover him to be an ancient dragon. He knew Aldous years ago, and he mentions Avon's purpose, the same thing the wildling woman mentioned earlier. He mentions a dark plague of some kind has followed Aldous in his footsteps, and it affected another elder dragon called Lord Ashgard. He wants you to travel to the Shiverdark to kill Ashgard. Okay, why has it taken 200 years for someone to accomplish this task? You couldn't find someone to do this in 200 years? Well, he promises to release the girls and tell you what he told Aldous all those years ago upon your return. You travel to the Shiverdark and confront Lord Ashgard. He's a dragon plagued by some sort of shadowy substance that seems to consume most of his body. After dispatching of him, you return to Surigal, and he frees these scouts, true to his word. He suggests that you return to Avon for the time being, and come back to him to hear what he has to say. Why? Why do you need to return to Avon first? No reason for this is ever given in the game's story. It's very strange, and it just kind of leaves the player scratching his or her head. Diana is glad to have the scouts back. She thanks you for your work and rewards you, but Sabin Firehand says that one of her scouts has just disappeared. She wants you to locate her. Meanwhile, Shepherd Graylin says he felt some kind of disturbance in the waterworks below the city. He wants you to investigate. Lysetta believes Surigal may lead you to the final tool of the Brotherhood, and she wishes you to return to him. When you explore the ancient waterworks, you discover that the disturbance was caused by a restless ghost. You kill it and return to Shepherd Graylin. He thanks you and says that his coven will work to release any further ghosts from purgatory. He then tells you that another Voltrak necromancer named Scourge has risen and taken the place of Nethereye. He suggests you find him in the Necrosis Citadel and kill him. When you find the Berserker Scout, she is trapped in an old lab. She's happy to see you, and she returns to Avon after you rescue her. Acolyte Maya thanks you for your work and rewards you. When you reach Scourge, he says that the end times are coming. You cannot do anything to stop them. You dispatch him anyway and return to Shepherd, who thanks you and rewards you. One of his pupils fell prey to the same dark shadow that took over Lord Ashgard. He is ravaging the glacial steppes. He is now calling himself Blightfellow, and Shepherd wants you to put him out of his misery. After you find and kill Blightfellow and return to Shepherd once again, he says that his scouts were exploring the tundra when they ran across a cave called the Glimmering Caves. Inside, they ran into an ancient dragon. They tried to negotiate with him for the right to explore the cave, but he rejected them and kicked them back out. Shepherd wants you to go to him and try to reason with him. When you find the dragon, he refuses to even attempt to talk to you. It would seem that he has a superiority complex and believes that dragonkind should take over the planet from humankind. He attacks you and you are left with no choice but to kill him. After doing so, you return to Shepherd, who regrets the way things turned out. Nonetheless, he thanks you and rewards you. When you return to Surigal to seek his counsel, he tells you that the last tool is not in this realm, but he does know how to get to it. He says it is in a distant land of fire and chaos called the Infernal Abyss, so it's basically in hell. How the fuck did it wind up in hell? He mentions Aldous traveled there 2 centuries earlier, and he does not know what happened to him after this. He gives you a potion that will let you access Pandemonium, where the entrance of the Infernal Abyss lies. After traveling a great distance through the Pandemonium, you find that the Infernal Abyss, it does indeed look like what you might imagine hell to look like. While you were there, you find a creature that tells you Aldous was here before. He says that they were successful in their mission, but you will not be. He says Oblivion is coming to this world and that the people of Avon will die. He then attacks you. Upon killing him, he drops a journal that belonged to Aldous. You return to Avon and give the journal to Lysetta, who confirms what you already knew. You are following in the footsteps of Aldous, who did visit the Infernal Abyss. She does not know for sure what became of him, though. She has, however, located the final tool. It is in the Obsidian Caverns in the Infernal Abyss, and is in possession of a creature known as the Oracle. The last tool is called the Orb of Containment. When you find the Oracle, he says he has guarded a creature called the Shadowed God for generations. He will no longer be a pawn of mortals, and you struggle in vain against him. He says the entire world will wind up like the Infernal Abyss. The Shadowed God's name is that. Do you have any fucking clue how to pronounce that? Because I fucking don't. He attacks you, you kill him, and he drops the final tool of the Brotherhood. You return to Avon and give it to Lysetta, and she sends you to speak to Draven. Draven says that the final battle is coming. The Shadow God has threatened Avon before. Centuries ago, the 5 citadels were constructed in the Infernal Abyss to contain the Shadow God, but his prison is deteriorating. And this has been the center of the troubles that have befallen Avon. His power and influence seeped out into the world. Each citadel contains a piece of a key to his prison. Yes, this is literally the plan. You're going to go back and forth between these 5 citadels, fight through each of them, retrieve parts of the key, reforge the key so you can unlock the prison to an ancient, evil, powerful god. You are literally releasing an ancient, evil god from his prison. If you think this plan sounds profoundly stupid, you are not alone in that thought. Anyway, you fight your way through the 5 citadels, only to discover that the 5th part of the key is missing, much to Draven's disappointment. He sends you to talk to Overseer Lysetta, who says Aldous traveled through the 5 citadels and survived all 5. He destroyed the final fragment, but he seems to think that the destruction bodes well for you. How? Why? I don't fucking know. She sends you back to Draven, who melded the 4 keys into an orb that should allow you to access the Shadow God's prison. Somehow. This is never explained, so thanks for that, game. There is no need to explain your own bullshit. Anyway, the prison is called Mariana's Guard. When you travel through Mariana's Guard, you come across a creature called the Cardinal Sentry. He says you do not know the power you seek to fight, and that he attacks you. Upon killing him, the Shadow God escapes from his prison and starts heading toward Avon. You head back to the Infernal Abyss, where you run across the Wildling Woman. How the hell did she get here? You needed a magic potion to gain entrance to this place, so how the fuck did someone follow you? Come on, game. Anyway, she says her tribe sent her after you to confront the Shadow God should you fail to kill him yourself. She saw the Shadow God making his way through the Infernal Abyss. He is heading toward Avon. When you leave the Infernal Abyss and return to the woods around Avon, you find Diana in the Tornwood Forest. She is surprised to see you. She saw the Shadow God headed toward Lightfall Grove, and she sends you out to see him. When you find the Shadow God, he is right outside the gates of Avon. He says no one was successful in containing him until Aldous showed up with a woman named Tail. Your action in Mariana's Guard allowed the Shadow God to escape his prison, and he says you struggle against him in vain and there will be no victory for you. After a long and tough fight, you do kill him and return to Avon. Draven speaks with you and tells you that Kaylee succumbed to the curse and became a puppet of the Shadow God. She started murdering innocent people in the streets of Avon and fled into the catacombs. He wants you to find her and kill her. When you do find her, she says she pities you for your failed attempts to stop the curse. As it turns out, the incantation that Lysetta used to try to cure the curse actually hastened it. It made things worse instead of better, ultimately allowing the Shadow God to take control of her. She says to surrender and you will know the peace of oblivion, and you are forced to kill her. After she dies, her spirit is set free. You hear her voice one last time as she fades away. She begs you for forgiveness for the pain and suffering she caused by turning into a puppet of the Shadow God. She says not to mourn her or blame yourself for what happened. She says that the people of Avon still need you now. Why? We killed the Shadow God, didn't we? Shouldn't this be all over at this point? Anyway, Draven grieves the loss. He does not blame you for what you had to do. He believes she is now at peace, being free of the Shadow God's influence. He sends you to speak with the Elder, who has a transcript of the Overseer's research. The Shadow God's corrupt influence is slowly killing him. Again, how? I fucking killed the Shadow God. If you think the game is going to address the fact that you killed him ever again, you're wrong. It ignores it and makes me wonder what the hell was the point of that. The game just proceeds as if you didn't fight him in the forest outside of Avon. Seriously, what the fuck? The game should be over right now, right? Ugh. Anyway, the Elder wants you to find the 4 tombs of the members of the Brotherhood of the Blade and to gather up their urns. You travel from tomb to tomb, retrieving the different urns. On your way to the 4th tomb, you run into Lysetta. She takes the journal that Kaylee dropped from you and mentions that Aldous and Tail sacrificed themselves to seal the Shadow God away. She says you do not need to do the same. She hopes you can kill him. That's the plan. We're going to stab the evil god in the face. Again. Because the game chose to ignore the first time we did it. Seriously. No explanation for this is ever given. After retrieving the final urn, you return to the Overseer, who said that her followers are using the magic of the 4 tools of the Brotherhood to protect the city of Avon from the Shadowed God. She says that an avatar representing the Brotherhood has appeared in the Infernal Abyss and is waiting for you to come talk to it. How the hell does she know this? She is not set in the Infernal Abyss, so there's no way that she should know this. When you return to the Infernal Abyss and speak to the Avatar, he takes the urns from you and names the 4 members of the Brotherhood. There's Templar Therios, the founder of the Shaylin Mall, Elder Wayland, the guardian of the Brotherhood and founder of the Druidic Coven, and keeper of the Brotherhood, Madame Tatiana, the founder of the Berserker Sisterhood, and defender of the Brotherhood, Overseer Athenia, founder of the Foundation of Academy, and scholar of the Brotherhood. He gives you the Warden's key to the Shadow God's prison. He says to go to the prison and confront the Shadow God. If we did not unlock the prison, how the shit did the Shadow God escape? If that was not the Shadow God, what did we kill the forest outside of Avon? Again, the game never fucking explains. When we reach the Shadow God, he says that the power of the Avatar gave us will not be enough to stop him. What power? The game didn't mention any kind of power that we got from the Avatar. He just gave us the key to the prison. The Shadow God plans on escaping and destroying the entire world. You kill him and return to the Avatar, who says your task is finally complete. The world will regrow from its decay, Aldous and Teo will be reunited in the afterlife, and Kaylee will be at peace. After this, there is an epilogue that essentially recaps the entire story. It really does not touch on anything new, and it is just another boring text crawl, much like the one at the very beginning of the game, when you first boot it up. It really is not much of an ending. The only new bits that you get are that Avon mourned the loss of Kaylee, celebrated your victory, and made peace with the wildlings. You are able to keep playing after this and finish up the remaining side quests. Everything after this is post-game content. Draven says that each of the 5 citadels contain individual prisons that house the kings and queens of various tribes of the world. They are evil, they cannot be allowed to escape, and you need to travel back to the Infernal Abyss to deal with each of them. Acolyte Maya has located an ancient tome that tells of the history of the city. She wants you to find it and retrieve it. When you retrieve the book and return it to her, she thanks you for your work and rewards you for it. The first of the 5 prisons is the Night Queen. She senses that the prison has weakened and figures that the Shadow God is dead. The second is Savage Lord Gortusk. He claims he will feast on your remains and have his revenge. The third is Death Enchanter, who claims humanity's reign is at an end. The fourth is Lord Vale Zool.
Zool, motherfucker, Zool!
He says his race is superior and he plans to kill you and escape. The fifth is Meza Barikon, who claims that the defeat of the Shadow God will lead to him ruling the world. After killing all 5, you return to Draven, and he thanks you and rewards you. But Acolyte Maya wants to talk to you. She has located the second half of the ancient weapon you sought earlier, and she wants you to retrieve it. It is in the Forfrost Asylum. When you return the weapon, she thanks you and rewards you for it. She located another tome detailing the history of Avon. It is in Pandemonium's Gate, and she wants you to retrieve it as well. Upon doing so, she thanks you and rewards you. That's it. That's all. That's every single quest in the game. Given how long it took to tell you the entire story of this game, you would think that it is a big focus, but it really isn't. The story of this game serves largely as an excuse for you to go kill shit. That's really all there is to it. It almost never goes into more depth than what is listed here. If you're expecting something similar to the level of lore and world building of other hack and slash games such as Diablo, you will not find it here. If you're looking for that out of your hack and slash RPGs, this is not the game for you. Even the story that is here is not always logically consistent, as I pointed out. This is not the game's biggest crime in terms of storytelling, though. The biggest crime is the way in which the story is told. There are no cutscenes in this game. There's the opening and closing text crawl and a bunch of dialogue boxes that you scroll through. That's it. That is how the entire damn story is told. I know what you're thinking. I made a comparison to Diablo, right? Diablo has text boxes that you sit through as well. Well, here's the difference. Diablo 2 has cutscenes between each act. On top of that, each text box is voice acted This has zero voice acting to go with its zero cutscenes. Another way in which the storytelling falls flat is in its character development. This game never makes one single attempt to flesh out its characters. It spends less time on them than it does on lore and backstory of the world. None of them will stick with you after you finish the game. The game never attempts to make you give a shit about its own story. In fact, it feels like the game does not give a shit about its own story, given just how poorly it's told. It's really nothing more than an excuse to go kill shit. This leaves us with the graphics, sound, and gameplay to hold their own, to keep interest and keep you playing. Thankfully, a lot of this does seem to get a lot more love than the game's story, lore, and world building did. God, could they get any less? Let's start things off with presentation and graphics. When you launch a new console or handheld, you want your big games for its launch lineup to really show off the capabilities of the system. You want them to really impress the player that just spent a good amount of money on your new hardware. In this sense, Untold Legends Brotherhood of the Blade succeeds with flying colors. This was a gorgeous game when it was released. It was far prettier than anything we had seen on any handheld device prior to this. And in a lot of respects, it holds up pretty well. When you start playing the game, one of the first things that you will notice is the environments are large, cram-packed with detail, and full of color. When this came out, it was truly impressive that a handheld game could render environments this large with this much detail packed into it. It is a testament to the game's art design and use of color that it's still not ugly all these years later. Another thing the game does very well is offers a wide variety of environments that you will fight through. The game does a good job of mixing up the different types of landscapes that you will engage enemies in. You will make your way through areas such as forests, icy tundras, hellish landscapes, caves, and temple-like structures, among others. The game never leaves you in an environment for more than a few hours before it has you fighting through another type of landscape. This does come with a caveat though. Despite the game's attempts to keep the environments feeling fresh for the entire game, a lot of the individual rooms can feel somewhat similar to things you've seen before. You will run across large rooms with holes in the middle and indoor hallways that feel like the same type of area reskinned. Perhaps this is the best that the developers could do with the limited hardware at the time, but it does make the game feel a little bit repetitive despite the designers trying to change things up. The previous does apply to enemies you fight as well. There are a lot of unique enemy types in this game. Every single environment brings new enemy types to kill. This does keep things fresh, and a lot of the enemy designs are pretty damn cool and inspired. But there are numerous reskins as well. This is fairly standard for this type of game, but it's definitely worth noting. Another nice touch of this game is that seemingly every piece of equipment looks different on screen when you equip it to your character. The look of your character's armor and weapons will change a lot over the course of the game because of the sheer amount of weapons and armor that you will switch back and forth between over the course of the game. Tons of them have unique models, and it all shows up on your character when you equip it to him or her. This is a great touch by the developers that really gives your character a bit of individuality when you equip him. The animation and effects of this game are also pretty nice. The animation tends to be fairly smooth for the time. The different enemies have a lot of attack, movement, and death animations, and they all look good. Your character animations feel a little more limited, but what is here is nice as well. There are some decent lighting effects for the time, and the particle effects in particular still look great to this day. There are a few nice touches here and there as well, such as being able to see your character through the leaves of a tree. This game also does shadows pretty well. Your character and enemies all cast shadows, and they're all in the shape of your bodies, and they move in unison with your movement. It's a very nice touch. Shadows do not change depending upon light sources though. The game is not perfect graphically by any means. There are definite flaws here. There are quite a few flickering textures, especially in the tundra, when the game is in motion, for example. I do not have the means to test it, but there does seem to run pretty well. It renders large environments with numerous enemies on screen, and it does not seem to slow down significantly. The game does stutter from time to time as well. What is more problematic, however, are certain aspects of the presentation. The game's menus look fine, but the way the story is presented and told just sucks. Furthermore, when you are browsing through your inventory, it slowly pans up and down to scroll through items below the current place on the screen. It would be a minor detail if you didn't spend so much damn time in your inventory waiting for it to slowly scroll up so you can examine the items in your inventory. Seriously, Sony Online Entertainment, was there any need for this to be so fucking slow? It's goddamn annoying, and you will get sick of this long before you beat this game. The sound is much more of a mixed bag than the graphics, however. Where I mostly praise the graphics, I have to be less kind to the audio portions. One half of it is fine, for the most part, but the other half is absolutely dreadful. What do I mean by this? Well, let's take a closer look. The actual sound design, from the weapons, to the enemies, to the environmental noises, is all just fine. The weapons sound appropriately powerful, each environment brings with it a new set of environmental sound effects, and every enemy type has its own unique set of sound effects. There's certainly a lot of good work here that went into making good use of the PlayStation Portable's audio capabilities to its fullest. First off, the game has a wide variety of sound effects for the enemies. Each unique enemy has its own set of sounds for moving, attacking, and dying. Reskins do have the same sounds as earlier versions of the enemies, but it is kind of to be expected. It's not that big of a deal, especially when the audio design was decent to begin with. Furthermore, every single environment brings with it a different set of environmental sound effects. Different surfaces, for example, make different noises when you step on them. Walking on snow sounds different than walking on grass, which sounds different than walking on dirt. It's a very nice touch that shows that the devs were paying close attention to detail when designing the game's audio. It does have one shortcoming though, and that is that the noises that your character makes when attacking and the weapon sounds themselves. Don't get me wrong, what's here is good, but there isn't much here. There is almost no variety to weapon sound effects or your character's grunts when swinging weapons. A club strike sounds the exact same as a sword strike, and they both sound pretty much the same as a hammer swing. The game definitely could have used more variety in this regard, though the audio we do get is by no means bad. What I can be less forgiving of, however, is the music. The music in this game is this Casio synthesizer crap that ranges from bland and forgettable to downright terrible. It never even approaches decent. It will not be long in this game before you find yourself searching for ways to turn the music off, because more often than not, it leans toward the terrible side instead of the forgettable side. Seriously, what the fuck were they thinking? Not only is the music for the game fucking atrocious, but none of it fucking works. At no point does it ever make you feel like you're on some grand adventure. None of it sounds like it belongs in a fantasy epic. All of it fails to set any sort of mood or atmosphere. It just annoys you. Here, listen to a few clips and let me know how any of this was supposed to be decent at all. Yeah, you hear that? Fucking awful. I do not know what possessed them to put this crap in the game, but it has got to go. I do not blame you one fucking bit if you turn the music off for your entire playthrough. It would probably make the game more enjoyable if you do. This is all fine and dandy, but how does it play? In a word, it plays well. The game does a decent job of keeping you fighting in new and fresh environments while killing a wide variety of enemies, and it offers a decent variety of gameplay styles to keep you coming back to the game for those that are into this kind of hack and slash game. The game does have a lot to offer, so let's take a look. First off, there are 4 different characters that you can choose from. I chose to play as the knight for my playthrough. He focuses on melee and can focus on a bow and arrow. But you can also choose to play a druid who focuses on summons and earth magic, a berserker, a female warrior that uses speed and savagery, or an alchemist who focuses on poison attacks. There is more than one way to play each character as well. If you want to play through multiple times to experiment with different character types, you are free to do so. The level cap is 50, so you cannot just keep leveling up to max out every single skill in your tree. You have to pick and choose how you want to develop your character, which lends further to the game's replayability. The game itself offers up a wide variety of quests for you to play as well. When you do start playing the game, it does the typical kill, loot, and level style of gameplay that made Diablo and its ilk so addicting in the first place pretty darn well. As you fight enemies, you are constantly rewarded with new loot that you will take back to the town to equip to your character or sell to the vendor. You are constantly picking up new items as you play and making your character more powerful, all the while leveling up. In this sense, it does have a great sense of progression. You kill enemies, you level up, you get loot, you get more powerful by equipping loot and leveling up. This game controls fine. You press X to swing your weapon, the analog stick moves your character around on screen. The other face buttons can be assigned to special attacks. Select brings up your inventory, start pauses the game, the left button uses a potion, the right button, when held down, allows you to rotate the camera with the face buttons. You can also lower the angle down for a closer view. Furthermore, hitting the left button while holding down the right button uses an energy potion. None of it is overly convoluted, and you will get used to it pretty quickly. There is a mini-map in the upper right corner of the screen that is an absolute godsend for navigation purposes. In the game's dungeons, it really helps you keep track of where you are going, where you have been, and where you need to go next as you travel through similar looking rooms. I swear sometimes I found myself paying more attention to the mini-map than I did to the gameplay on screen. I would not recommend this though, as it can get you killed if you're not watching your health. One aspect I do not like, however, is the fact that enemies seem to scale with you. The game maintains a consistent level of challenge as you play throughout it because of this, and you never seem to become all-powerful. I hate it when games do this because to me it feels like it screws up character progression. I get that it is a way for designers to make the game a more consistent challenge throughout, but I feel like I've earned my chance to be a kill-all badass when I've reached max level. I hated it when Oblivion did this, I hated it when Skyrim did this, I hated it when Final Fantasy VIII did this, and you better fucking believe I hate it here too. Seriously, designers, stop doing this shit. Let me earn the right to be an unstoppable badass, damn it! There is one very annoying thing that the game does that is worth mentioning. There are certain enemies that have attacks that stun you or freeze you in place. When this happens, you, of course, are unable to attack back for a short period of time. There are times when enemies deal damage to you so quickly that you cannot heal yourself fast enough to live through it and you die. It feels cheap when it happens, and it's just annoying. The game does have a multiplayer mode. You can play through the story with a friend by your side, kicking enemy ass. But this comes with a problem. It is local area network only. You can only play this game with another person in the same room as you with his own PSP and copy of the game. Okay, let me get this straight. This game was developed by Sony Online Entertainment. It is in a genre that thrives on multiplayer play. It is on a handheld that has Wi-Fi built in so you could connect to the internet on the day of its release. And it somehow skips out on having online co-op? How? Seriously, how the fuck did this even happen? It baffled me on the day of its release. All these years later, it still confuses the hell out of me. This game damn well should have co-op play over the damned internet from the day fucking one. There is just no fucking excuse for this at all. It's a real shame that this game does not have online co-op. One of the best ways to alleviate some of the repetition inherent in this type of game is to play it with a friend or stranger. It is a real shame then that co-op is so limiting. If you can find another person with a PSP and a copy of this game, it is fun. A friend of mine and I used to play co-op back in the day, but this is a really big if. All in all, Untold Legends Brotherhood of the Blade is a far cry from a perfect game. It definitely has its problems. It should have had online co-op. The environment can feel a little bit repetitive despite the designer's admirable attempt to fix this. Your character needs more noises for his weapon swings and grunts when attacking enemies. Scaling enemies screw up the sense of progression. The story is poorly told and there is little lore for you to explore. The game can also feel pretty generic at times, and the music is abhorrent. Having said that, there's plenty here to like as well. The addictive quality that makes games like Diablo a lot of fun is here. It has the kill, loot, and level cycle that helped make the game so great. It offers up plenty of replay value as well with its co-op play and its different character classes. There is plenty here to keep you busy. That is for damn sure. Honestly, this game somehow managed to feel both inspired and generic at the same time. It's pretty weird. Every single time the game loads, the loading screen shows a piece of concept art from the game's design, and all of the art is absolutely gorgeous. Much of the artwork manifests itself as gorgeous in-game character models as well. A lot of the environments are heavily inspired too. But the poorly told mess of a story and the terrible music all makes it feel like it is generic and uninspired at times. It creates a strange dichotomy that encompasses the entire game. At the end of the day, I can only really give this game a reserved recommendation. There are better hack-and-slash dungeon crawlers out there. This pales in comparison to something like Diablo 2. But for fans of the genre, it is not a bad game by any stretch of the imagination. It is also a game that you can take with you anywhere you go, and the portability factor does add to the game's appeal. Your hack-and-slash dungeon crawler options on handhelds are more limited. In that sense, it's easier to recommend. The team at Sony Online Entertainment would go on to develop 2 more games in this series. How did they hold up? Do they improve on things that this game does well? And did they fix the things that it doesn't? We will just have to wait and find out. I have been the Doom Dog. Thank you for watching. This was my first ever attempt at a long-form review, and I would appreciate a like. If you could share this video and subscribe to my channel, that would help me out a lot as well. Make sure you leave your thoughts down below. Have you played this game before? If you have, what did you think of it? I will talk to you guys next time. Doom Dog out.